This is the Blood Red podcast from the Liverpool Echo.
It's the Blood Red podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool Echo. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. James Milner puts pen to paper to extend his Reds stay. Sadio Mane's exit could be being readied as Darwin appears the natural selection to complete Liverpool's front three evolution. We're talking new contracts, transfer bids, and Darwin Nunez, all on the latest Blood Red pod. Getting involved today, we have the Echo star boy Tom Cavilla, the Wirral Wonder Richard Garnett, and the Bramford's boy Matt Addison. Chaps, I do hope that you are all well. And well, Tom, I'll throw over to you first up. We're going to chat about James Milner and his new contracts. What are the details?
Yeah, it's a new one-year deal for Milner. Takes him to 2023, and obviously, well, by the end of that, would have been at the club for 8 years. So, yeah, it's a really good piece of business by Liverpool. I think he's been such a reliable player for the club since joining from Man City on a free transfer, and it's hard to think of a sort of a better free transfer they've had for so long, or any team really in the Premier League. I think just the experience he brings to the team, helping the younger players like Harvey Elliott, Fabio Carvalho next season maybe as well. The players that are just coming through in his position. Also, we've seen it, a number of times. Milner's been able to play in different positions in the team, whether that's been left back, I think right back a few times as well. I think it was just, made absolute sense to do that if he was happy to stay at the club. And I think if Liverpool can keep him around for as long as they can, and they should do really. I mean, past that 1 year, I don't know what will come after that. Maybe, there's been talk about maybe a coaching role for Milner at the club. But yeah, I think it makes perfect sense from both sides to keep him around for as long as possible. So, yeah, very positive news today.
Yeah, Rich, I suppose on the scale of 1 to no-brainer, this one's off the chart, isn't it? I mean, last year it kind of felt as though at the end of this contract, which I think he signed back in December 2019, I want to say, I might be wrong on that front, but when he got to the end of this contract, it kind of felt that this might be the parting of the ways. But in terms of taking that new contract, Jurgen Klopp has spoken about it through the course of the season on a number of occasions as to kind of how he feels that he really wanted to see this get done.
Yeah, I don't think the signing of it is necessarily a no-brainer in terms of they must hold on to James Milner. But when you break down what he's brought to this squad and what he's achieved over his time here, and the fact that he's not a player that's going to demand the astronomical wages of a Mo Salah or a Sadio Mane, then of course it makes perfect sense to keep him in the fold. And most importantly, I think he can still do the business on the pitch. Yes, he's not playing week in, week out. He's coming into the side as and when required, but his versatility and his adaptability and of course his exemplary attitude means that he can come in and do a variety of different roles and do it to the highest level with the experience of a winner. And they're all qualities that Klopp loves and will want to see in any new player that comes into his side. And who better to take the lead from than James Milner? And the fact that I think they've agreed a deal with him on less lucrative terms than he was previously enjoying. Perhaps not good news for James Milner, but it's keeping him at Liverpool Football Club, one of the top sides in Europe. And you can tell by what he was saying on the club's return from Paris how much the club really means to him. And he clearly happy to accept those terms to stay. So everyone's a winner in that respect.
Yeah, he wasn't quite given the wave off, the send-off that Divock Origi was, Matt, after the final game of the season. And that was maybe one of the first hints that his Liverpool story wasn't completely done. I mean, we understand he's turned down offers from other Premier League sides as well as maybe more lucrative moves abroad. It just shows kind of how much of the part of the fabric James Milner has become during Jurgen Klopp's time.
Yeah, there was a bit of talk about MLS and things like that, wasn't there? Which I think might be appealing for him at some point in the future, but certainly right now. I mean, like Rich says, he's played a big role really last season for Liverpool. He was man of the match, wasn't he, in that game against Newcastle towards the end of the season? There was, certain moments really that you kind of just thought there's still a future for him at the top level. And when you're getting opportunities in this Liverpool team, I think it's really hard to kind of make the case for going anywhere else, to be honest. I mean, it's clearly not a financial decision. I think it's It's something that James Milner said for a number of seasons now. He just wants to play football at the highest level for as long as possible. And I still think there'll be 3 or 4 seasons of James Milner left, probably the last one for him at Liverpool, this one coming up. But then, you could quite easily see him going somewhere else, whether that's, in England or somewhere else. I think there's still a lot more for him to give. So, yeah, for him, it was a no-brainer, I'm sure, as well, for just the opportunity really to stay in and around a team like Liverpool. I mean, why would you turn that down at the moment? There's going to be so many games again next season. There's going to be chances for him to play. It's not always going to be in central midfield. It might have to be in certain other positions that he might not like as much. But I just think that, whatever his ambitions are in the future, the best place for him right now is Liverpool. If it's coaching ambitions he's got, well, there's not many coaching teams better to learn from than what he's got at the moment. If it's, something else that he wants to think about, then that's obviously another 12 months for him to come to that decision. So, yeah, it's no surprise, I don't think, that James Milner has decided to stick around, and absolutely no surprise, even less of a surprise that Liverpool wanted him to, because whoever you speak to, whether it's, coaches, players, fans, whoever, the influence that he's got is absolutely huge at Liverpool. It's really obvious to see.
Yeah, most definitely. Tom, you spoke before about kind of the professionalism that James Milner has, and he demonstrates on a daily basis within the Liverpool kind of setup and at Kirby. Immediately kind of think of the likes of Curtis Jones and Harvey Elliott, those young players still making their way in the game. How big another season on the training ground with James Milner could be for them?
Yeah, very important. We've seen the development of Harvey Elliott and Curtis Jones in recent seasons, but these are still players that have a lot to learn and can still improve quite a lot as well. So having someone like James Milner, who's been around for so many years, he knows every trick in the book. He's seen it all throughout his career. It's really important to have players like that at the club, because apart from Milner, there's not too many in sort of that level of experience within the Premier League over a number of years at different clubs as well. So I think it's invaluable really having someone like that who's able to guide the younger players, but also not just for the younger players as well. I think, even the older players as well, he's still a great example for them. 36, I think he is now, and he still finishes top of all the fitness tests they have in training, that kind of thing in pre-season. It just shows you, the dedication of the player, that he still comes out on top despite his age. And that's just sort of testament to Milner, really, and the standards he sets himself, but also what he demands of other people. He's the one player you'll see for Liverpool that's trying to constantly close down a challenge in the last few minutes of the game, win the ball back, even if he's been running around everywhere the whole match. So, yeah, I think the way he plays kind of just says it all really about what he's like as a person. And, for the younger players, that's what they'll aspire to be as well. So, good news for everyone, really.
Yeah, most definitely. Right, with it being the end of the season and a bit of, I suppose, not a serious nature for us to have to get into everything. Let's have a bit of fun here on the Blood Red podcast with a bit of trivia around James Milner. As you may well know, Rich, you're going to go first here anyway, but as you may well know, of course, Jordan Henderson is the only player who's been at the club longer than him. And when Divock Origi departs at the end of this month, Milner will be the only player left who started Jurgen Klopp's first game away at Tottenham back in October 2015. So what we're going to do is guess the other 9 players. I'm going to go round and we'll go through process of elimination to see, of you 3, who can remember who lined up for Liverpool that day. So Rich, you've got first pick. Who are you going to go for?
So this is against Spurs.
Yep.
Klopp's first game, yeah?
Klopp's first game away at Tottenham.
Mignolet in goal.
Yeah, Mignolet. Matt, on to you.
I'm just going to hope he's not injured. I'm going to go for Adam Lallana.
Adam Lallana did start, leader of the press. Yep.
Good stuff.
Tom, you're up next.
I'm pretty sure Coutinho was playing.
He certainly was. Tick.
Yeah.
Rich, right? Everyone's still in then. Rich, back round to you.
Right, that's come round too quick. You stalled on it a bit, Tom. You know what I mean? We've got Coutinho.
Yeah, Coutinho.
You say right? Okay. Trying to think of a bit fullback. Mignolet, Henderson, Coutinho. Do we still have Skirtle at this point, or have they gone?
No, Martin Skirtle was there. You're hanging in, Rich, but you're still there. You're still there. Matt?
Well, I've got two in my head. One's a bit more... Yeah, I'm going to go with Nathaniel Klein. I'm going to go for.
Correct. You would be right there. Pre-Trent days, of course. Tom?
The left back. I think it was Moreno, but for some reason I think someone else coming to mind. I don't know why. I don't know. He surely was playing that.
You going to go with it?
I don't know. Something telling me he wasn't playing, but I'm going to say Moreno.
Moreno did start, correct?
He did start, yeah.
You're still in, right, Rich? Back round. There's 3 players left.
Bloody hell.
Well, that's a defence anyway.
Yeah, that is.
For Merseysiders of a certain vintage, there used to be a quiz show on Radio Merseyside called Hold Your Plums. And when you got a bit stuck, you were able to ask Billy Butler for a clue. So can you give us a clue, Guy? Because I'm struggling now a little bit.
Yeah. The clues are we've got 1 central defender and 2 central midfielders to go.
2 central midfielders, and Milner and Henderson were both playing.
Henderson wasn't playing.
No Henderson.
No Henderson that day.
I've got one of them.
Origi and Milner are the 2 players of the current squad who were involved. Of course, Origi's leaving at the end of the month.
Origi, right.
Milner's still there. So 2 midfielders and a centre half to go.
Do you still have Joe Allen then?
No, he didn't start. Rich, you're out.
You know what?
Rich, you're out. So Matt and Tom, who's going to win?
That was one of my answers, so I'm glad you went for that, Rich. But my
someone else is going down that route anyway.
my other central midfielder was Emre Can.
No, I was going to say that.
Emre Can did start. Yes,
I think I know who the other one is.
Players left. Can you pick one of them?
I think Lucas is the other centre mid.
Lucas was the other centre midfielder, right? So Matt, centre half.
So the other centre half, I'm going to go Kolo Toure.
Wasn't Kolo Toure for the win, Tom? Can you get the other centre half on the day?
Skirtle and I don't know. I feel like this is going to be quite a random one as well. Lovren's obviously the obvious one, but I don't know if he was playing. I don't know. Don't think it was.
Kolo Toure, incidentally, was on the bench, but
I don't think it was Lovren, but I'm trying to think.
Another one has come to me now, actually. But
too late now, mate. You're on the bench for me.
Just trying to make sure there's not too much silence on the podcast.
well, while we listen to Tom's brain.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I don't think. I'm trying to think who else it might have been. Okay, I'll say Lovren, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't Lovren.
No, it wasn't Lovren.
No.
Right. Anybody else want to jump in? Matt, I'll come back to you because you got through to this round before being frozen up.
Mamadou Sakho.
It was Mamadou Sakho. Was correct. Rich, I was being harsh because Joe Allen came off the bench. You replaced Lallana.
You're joking, mate.
Other players to come off the bench was Jordan Ibe. So nice little bit of trivia. Matt, you are the winner.
What about naming the substitutes?
No, we'll be all day. A bowl of brown flakes is on its way to you, my friend. But that is the prize for winning that.
Right, next coming last. I like that one, Guy. I think we should do more of them.
Yeah, I'll try and feed them in certainly off season where we can. Right, next up to discuss is Sadio Mane. And Tom, I'll come to you on this. And plenty of news over the course of the weekend and into this morning regarding the future of Sadio Mane. Of course, he said he would let reporters know of his intentions after the final in Paris. Still hasn't quite done that. And a fair bit of backtracking and joking, as he put it, over the course of the weekend. But where are we today?
Yeah, so Liverpool have rejected Bayern's bid, believed to be around £25 million in total. The club sort of valuing it as not a fair representation of what Mane is worth to Liverpool. And you would expect Bayern to now come back, at some point with a second offer. What that will be remains to be seen. But Liverpool obviously will not want to let him go on the cheap just because of everything he's given to Liverpool and the talent of Mane in general. I suppose the only positive for Bayern, he's only got 1 year left on his deal. So they may feel they can get him on a cheaper fee than normal, a bit like when Liverpool signed Thiago from Bayern. But we'll see what happens. It's been a bit strange in terms of all the comments being made by Mane. It just seemed a bit, I don't know, sarcastic, the sort of the comments he's been making. And I know it's probably done in a light-hearted way, but it doesn't necessarily come across as very professional sort of on Mane's part. Just some of the comments he's made about I'll let the people from Senegal decide, what I do next. And it just a bit of a strange sort of way to go about it. He's always been, someone who comes across as very professional person, and it seems a bit out of character, I guess, making those sort of comments. But I guess if he's being quizzed on it, then he has to say something. But I would have thought just because of everything he's experienced at Liverpool, he maybe would have just kept his cards a bit close to his chest, sort of with his answer. I know he's not necessarily said where he's going; he's sort of left it very open. But it's not too sure about like the tone he's taken with it. But it's just a bit of a surprise, really, because I think Liverpool fans were sort of expecting Mohamed Salah to be in this position this summer where all the talk would be about where he's going and what club's in for him. But find ourselves with Mane, the one that's going to leave instead of Salah. And it's all happened quite quickly in that sense. And it just looks as if he might be going this summer by the looks of things.
Yeah, definitely. Rich, as they say, no smoke without fire. And it feels as though if Mane's intentions were to remain at Liverpool, by now with the amount of speculation that's been swirling, he probably would have come out to knock a few of these rumours on the head. But if anything, he's been adding fuel to that fire. Yeah,
Tom talked about him joking a bit about things and his future. I think I prefer him as a goal scoring creator, as a stand-up comedian on the current evidence that we've seen so far. A lot of what he's saying doesn't really make much sense, does it? But it also suggests that, yes, he's potentially looking at a way out of Liverpool, or he is giving off a message that he's serious about his intentions of looking at other options if the club aren't prepared to offer him the type of contract that he thinks he deserves. And I actually don't think it's an absolute foregone conclusion that Sadio Mane will leave Liverpool, although it does look increasingly likely as the days tick by. I also sort of get the impression with some of this slight sideshow we've now got that he's not a player that's particularly used to being in this situation where he's having to answer constant questions about his about speculation about his future, and I don't want to say he's been unprofessional about it, but he's perhaps shown a bit of inexperience of having to deal with this sort of line of questioning, and which may explain why we're getting such a wide variety of odd responses. That's the way I'm looking to it. I might be being kind to him there. I don't know what kind of advice he gets in the background. Clearly not too much. Normally Liverpool are quite good at that type of thing, but obviously this isn't Liverpool's interest. This is Sadio Mane's interest. So a slightly different perspective. Will he definitely leave? We've seen it before with players, haven't we, with big speculation around exits, and then they end up signing a new contract. Whether he can pull that off on the terms that he wants with Liverpool, I'm not too sure. But until then, we'll have to second guess what the Senegalese people want Sadio Mane to do, whether it's join Bayern, Marseille, or someone else. Who knows?
Yeah, he's given Marseille a big heads up, hasn't he? That he'd love to go and play for them, of course, the team he says he supported as a boy. But Matt, I mean, the longer this gets dragged out, there does feel that inevitability that it is only going one way. But surely pre-season, I think I'm right in saying, it's 4 weeks away, beginning for Liverpool on the 4th of July when they're due to report back. This surely needs sorting before then. But even I would argue to say probably in the next fortnight, of a clear indication as to how far negotiations are going. If Bayern are putting bids in that Liverpool at the moment are knocking back, wanting to hold out for close to £40 million, surely there needs to be a resolution sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's got to be done sooner rather than later. I think for the player, for both clubs to kind of work out where they want to be with it. For obviously, as you say, the start of pre-season, you don't want this to drag on. But I think for me, it's fairly inevitable now that he will leave. I think it's kind of felt like that to me, really, since he was asked about it in the build-up to the Champions League final. And he kind of said, well, I'll tell you afterwards. We obviously saw the contrast with Mohamed Salah. He was asked, or in fact, he wasn't even asked, was he? He kind of brought it up himself and just said, yeah, I'm staying next season. I think if Sadio Mane intended to stay at Liverpool, he would have just said that to begin with, to be honest. I think the fact that Bayern have now made a bid as well, they wouldn't have done that unless they were convinced that they were able to pay what Liverpool wanted, and also that Sadio Mane absolutely wanted to go and join them. So, yeah, for me, it's a really difficult one for Mane. He keeps obviously being asked about it every day, as you'd expect. There's lots of speculation, but I wrote something on this morning, actually. I almost feel for him in a way that it's not really helpful for him to keep getting asked about it. It's not helpful for Liverpool to kind of make it known that Bayern are definitely going to sign him, because then that puts pressure on them to go and find a replacement. If it's Darwin Nunez, who we'll talk about, or whoever it is, whoever that selling club is, they need to kind of have in the back of their heads that there is still a chance that Sadio Mane could stay. Otherwise, they can just ask whatever they want for that replacement. So it's a really tricky one at the moment. It's one of those where I think the cards will kind of fall into place in the next few weeks. But Liverpool have said it all along. They're not against necessarily Sadio Mane leaving as long as it's at the right price, but they've got to have that replacement lined up first. So I wouldn't expect Sadio Mane to come out and say anything definitive until Liverpool have kind of got that stacked up and ready, because I'm sure they've said the exact same thing to him. Presumably he has now told them that he wants to go, and obviously Bayern have started bidding. If that is the case, then he'll probably have been told, well, okay, you can go if we get the price tag, but we've got to get something else sorted first. So I think there's just a lot of things to kind of sort out with this to sort of put it all into the right order. So in terms of what he can and can't say, it's probably a very difficult position, I think, for Sadio Mane to be in.
Yeah, most definitely. Tom, how big, certainly so early into the summer, is this going to be a test of Julian Ward and his powers of negotiation? We know what role he played in the Luis Diaz deal. We know the role he even played in the sale of Ryan Brewster. But that has been one of the trademarks of Michael Edwards, is really getting the most out of a sale. Now, if reports to be believed, the initial bid's around £20 million with 5 or so in add-ons if Bayern can win the Champions League. Sounds very, very similar to the deal Liverpool struck to sign Thiago. Now, a lot of people might think, certainly from the Bayern end, that maybe Liverpool owe Bayern one for the deal that they agreed to with Thiago. But from the Liverpool side of view, I suppose from Julian Ward's perspective, he wasn't maybe overly involved in that deal, and he wants the best deal for Liverpool.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, I think your Bayern probably do have a point about that with Thiago and the fact that he's, a world-class player as well. That was with 1 year remaining, and Liverpool managed to sign him for a very sort of reasonable price, considering that. And they'll feel the same about Mane, who's in a sort of similar position to Thiago was. Mane, obviously 30 years old, 1 year remaining, so it's quite a similar situation, but I think with an attacker, it's sort of, you've got a bit more of a premium price a lot of the time to pay, like compared to a midfielder. So I suppose Liverpool will be holding out for more, and for that reason alone, and also for how many years Mane's been performing to such a high level. I think 40 million is sort of the price that's being floated around, and I think if Liverpool can get close to that, I think that would be a fair enough price, even if it was just slightly below 37, 36 mark. I think that would be a fair price for Mane. But like you said, Julian Ward will want to get the best deal for Liverpool. And by the looks of it, Liverpool are not going to, just let him go easily. And we were just saying before, I've just done a piece about it. Bayern are in a similar position as well with Lewandowski and not wanting to let him go. So it's going to be quite an interesting summer, which could be dragged out. Because both clubs are going to want to be keeping hold of their 2 star players, but Bayern and Liverpool are sort of looking resigned to the fact that they may just have to part company and it just comes down to what price is going to suit all parties. And Bayern will want to have someone lined up for Lewandowski before he goes, similar to Mane at Liverpool. So this might end up going on for a number of weeks if Bayern, can't find a resolution to Lewandowski's situation. So, I don't think Liverpool will be in a rush to sell him. I know they'll want to have things in place for pre-season, but if Bayern aren't willing to match them, we've seen how stubborn FSG can be in terms of payments and, Salah's contract not willing to sort of budge on their demands for that. So if Bayern say, well, we're only going to go to 25 at Liverpool, I can't see them just going, oh yeah, that's fine, we'll shake your hand on that. I think they'll just keep firm on their position. So Bayern will just have to meet them there.
Yeah, Liverpool and Bayern Munich involved in a summer transfer saga. I'm pretty sure I read that one before and it turned out all right for the Reds. We'll have to see how it goes this time. But Rich, how fitting is it then that a man called Darwin is being eyed up as the man to complete the evolution for Liverpool's front three?
Never one to miss a pun, Guy, are you?
Never.
I'll come on to Nunez now. I was just going to say with Mane actually and Bayern's bid, if you liken it to buying a house, whenever you look to buy a house and you make an offer on that property, if you're shrewd, you're going to go in with a low ball offer to start with. That'll get rejected. You might get a counter offer which is much higher, and inevitably you meet somewhere in the middle and agree a deal. The difference is, of course, is that Liverpool don't necessarily want to sell their house, being Sadio Mane, and therefore Bayern have got to come up trumps with the Reddies if they're going to prize him away from Anfield. So I was really agreeing with Tom. I think Liverpool will hold out more for that sort of £40 million mark that they were hoping to hit. And the only thing I think that will accelerate that is if they are able to nail down a replacement earlier, at which point, if they get the right deal themselves, they may start to compromise a little bit more with Bayern Munich and agree a cheaper sale than they'd originally hoped for. But in terms of Darwin Nunez, we got a decent look at him, didn't we, in the quarterfinals of the Champions League. Like to throw himself to the floor a bit. I seem to remember in the first leg, but if we put that to one side, he did look a dangerous player. He scored in both legs, and certainly had the cut of the type of player that Jurgen Klopp could mould into his mentality monsters squad. And if that is the way that things went, I don't think I'd be too disappointed to see Darwin Nunez come to Liverpool. He's certainly got a decent goal scoring track record, and having not played alongside Luis Diaz, but played in the same league as him, they'll know each other pretty well, and the sort of the style of play that they normally implement. So that would be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, definitely. Jurgen Klopp has spoken, hasn't he, about his liking for the Portuguese league, the market of going and buying players from that division. But Matt, you look at the statistics, the numbers, 26 goals in 28 league appearances for Darwin Nunez this season just gone. The previous year, though, only 6 goals in 29 appearances. For some of the fees being bandied about, has he, I know he's only 22, but has he quite got that kind of body of work that really would draw Liverpool in?
It purely depends, I think, on the price tag. I mean, there's been sort of numbers as high as 100 million euros being put out there by Portuguese media outlets, and there's absolutely no chance that Liverpool pay that much for him. I think if you can negotiate a deal, I think there's definitely a top quality player there to be developed. Obviously, only 22, like you say, there's still, a lot more to come from him, I think, in future seasons. I think Liverpool would look at it and think that at the right price it would be worth the gamble, but exactly what that price is, I'm not too sure. I think it would probably have to be something similar to what they did with Luis Diaz. I think that was 37 million to begin with potential to rise to 49 million. So I think it was that kind of deal. Possibly you could see it happening. Luis Diaz, of course, was, I think, only kind of at the level he was at for about a year, maybe slightly longer. So it's not too dissimilar in terms of the league and the kind of stepping up in terms of the numbers that they've had in that time. So I think he's definitely one to look at, but Liverpool will look at other options if there's better value to be had elsewhere. I think that's going to be, the primary concern for them. There's absolutely no way that they pay, a club record fee for him. I don't think this summer, just purely on the basis that there will be other options out there that you can get considerably cheaper. And I think the fact that they're sort of looking for £40 million or so for Sadio Mane, that probably is kind of instructive of what they're going to spend on a replacement. It's probably not going to be a great deal more than that they shell out for whoever it is that comes in. But yeah, for now, the links with Darwin Nunez are not going to go away, but the price tag is going to have to come down a hell of a long way for that to be realistic.
The main thing, though, Tom, that seems apparent, though, is it looks like Liverpool, to all intents and purposes, are planning and gearing up for a forward arrival this summer to come in to Kirby. Whether that's going to be Darwin Nunez, we've seen it so many times that a name can often get put out there, but as our colleague Ian Doyle's reporting, that there are other names being considered, and maybe the star attraction name Darwin Nunez in this regard can kind of almost be the smokescreen for other business being done in the background.
Yeah, maybe. Like you said, I think it all very much depends on what happens with Mane, really. If he goes, then obviously Liverpool will need to replace him in the market. And, well, like we've also alluded to earlier, it probably would be done before they sell him. So I would imagine sort of doing a deal for Nunez wouldn't be particularly straightforward, given what Benfica are looking for. So to be able to do that and get that sort of deal done before, selling Mane would be quite difficult to do in a short period of time. So if Liverpool were signing you, I could imagine that would be one that was done later in the window, because it doesn't, like I'm saying, it doesn't seem like a simple one to sort of wrap up quickly. But yeah, it might give Liverpool a chance to look at other names in the market. Liverpool haven't always gone for the big names that are ready-made, sort of world-class talents. You've seen it with Salah and Mane, and Firmino actually as well. All of them arrived at Liverpool not necessarily as being known and referred to as sort of top talents, but during their time at the club, they've been developed into that. So it might be a case of just buying another player that's sort of in that younger age range, sort of 23 to 26, and then developing them into their sort of prime years into a world-class player. I know people have sort of mentioned Lewandowski, people like that, but I think it's hard to sort of picture Liverpool going for someone, in their late, or 33 in his case, but sort of someone at the latter stage of their career, because it just doesn't sort of suit the model of what they're going for, of sort of developing a younger player. So there's a few options for Liverpool to consider, and yeah, I think it will just come down to price and who sort of fits the profile the best, really.
Yeah, definitely. Rich, how exciting though is it from I suppose supporters perspective as much as anything that this is an out-and-out goal scorer that Liverpool are looking at now? Yes, I know Mane and Salah have both been terrific goal scorers for Liverpool, but our wingers, Mohamed Salah, so quick to always say, I'm not a forward, I'm a winger. But we've not really seen during the Jurgen Klopp era an out-and-out number 9 centre forward really consistently be the man selected to bang in the goals and spearhead the attack, where certainly a name like Darwin Nunez suggests that might be a change of attack.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, considering Liverpool haven't had a number 9, so to speak, they haven't done too badly, have they? They've scored plenty of goals, playing in a particular way. And I suppose if you bring someone like Nunez into the fold, does that change things slightly? I imagine it does in some respects. But is that a bad thing? Not necessarily. Klopp's always stuck with that. Obviously, he's very sort of tried and trusted formation, but the players that have played within it, particularly in the forward line, he's chopped and changed. Certainly this season. And come up with different solutions and more often than not yielded results. So I suppose if you lose a player like Sadio Mane, it's always going to initially have a negative effect on a side. But if you bring in someone who's capable of scoring goals out of nothing or half chances, little chances, some of the type of goals that we probably haven't scored as many of as under previous regimes, perhaps your kind of even like your Robbie Fowlers, your Owens, your Rushes, your Tappins and stuff like that. Don't see it all too many of them, but maybe Darwin Nunez can bring different elements in that will change the way Liverpool play, and maybe also get a little extra out of the superb fullbacks that Liverpool have got at their disposal, especially balls into the box. I mean, we already seen a little bit of that with Diogo Jota and that excellent sort of timing of runs he makes to the front post, and I'd be interested to see if Nunez can bring some sort of trademark finish of his own to the team if he was to come. He is a player that excites me. I would be quite happy to see him be the player who replaced Sadio Mane if that's what it comes to. I don't really want Mane to leave, but at the end of the day, you only want players at your club who want to be there and are prepared to maintain the levels that they have been. And if Mane goes, Nunez is certainly a player that would excite me coming to Anfield.
Yeah, most definitely. Matt, final say then before we wrap things up, I suppose. He's looking at that forward line. And I mean, Diogo Jota obviously came in with already known Premier League experience. Luis Diaz has had 6 months to get Premier League experience as well. Over the course of the weekend, Rafinha was another player linked, different type of player. But do you think there will be others maybe who are being monitored on that shortlist who will already be perhaps experienced at playing in the Premier League?
Yeah, Rafinha is one that interests me. I think that kind of link is more that you'd look at and say, well, that would be one if Mohamed Salah left. That would be a player that you'd look at to come and play on that right-hand side. But I think Premier League experience is kind of, it's obviously a good thing. It's certainly not a bad thing to have. But I think for me, it's, you can kind of make a judgment on these players. Christopher Nkunku, I keep talking about him on every single podcast, but I think the best way of kind of measuring him is in the Champions League, what he's done against PSG and Manchester City last season. I think there's different ways that you can kind of monitor and look at these players. I think Liverpool certainly, obviously they looked at what Diaz did in Portugal, but they would have also seen what he'd done in the Champions League. They would have seen that against themselves, but in other games as well. I think that's, certainly a good barometer of the level of these players. I think if you can kind of take certain aspects of those and kind of imagine them in a Liverpool team, that the Champions League is probably a closer match to, say, the level that Leeds United and Rafinha are playing at. But I think there's different ways you can go about it. The main thing that Liverpool will have to kind of think about and decide and presumably will have decided already in terms of who they go for in terms of a Mane replacement is, do they want a kind of fixed traditional number 9, or do they want to go for someone who's a little bit more versatile? I think that's the first question that you've got to ask, and then kind of the options place themselves into one of those two categories, don't they? So there's still, a number of options in whichever direction they choose to go. But I've said this as well a few times. I think that the main thing really is that you can kind of find someone who guarantees you sort of 20, 25 goals next season. That's what Sadio Mane got last season. If you're potentially looking at losing Mohamed Salah next season, obviously he's another level above that. You need to have sort of 4 or 5 of those attackers that are getting 20, 25. That's what you'd hope that Luis Diaz can do next season. Diogo Jota and Sadio Mane have done it this season. I think that's what Liverpool have got to do. They've got to look not just at a Sadio Mane replacement, but what happens if the worst happens with Mohamed Salah. You're then going to have to think about that next summer as well. So it's going to be a crucial couple of windows. I think it's not the easiest one for Julian Ward to come into, but I'm pretty sure that Liverpool will get someone in this summer, and pretty sure that Sadio Mane will move on. It's just going to be interesting to see sort of which way they decide to go with that, because I think there's arguments, for and against both different ways of doing it. There's no real guarantee, but at the end of the day, you trust Liverpool to get it right.
Yeah, certainly would. Well, it is going to be a big summer for Julian Ward, and we will be across it every step of the way here on the Blood Red podcast, as well as across the Liverpool Echo website. Thanks again for tuning in and watching if you're joining us on YouTube, or listening wherever it is you get your audio on demand. If you want to leave us a rating and review, that is always more than appreciated. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Matt Addison, Tom Cavilla and Richard Garnett, thanks for your time and your company here on the Blood Red podcast. It's bye for now.